Welcome once again to the Magnum Rewatch podcast. My name is Graham.
I'm Kathleen.
We're from LoadingReadyRun.com, purveyor of fine comedy delights. That's like Turkish Delight, but
Oh, I love Turkish Delight.
scripted.
I feel like Turkish Delight is a good analogy for us because I love Turkish Delight, but it's not super popular. And I feel that there are people who love us, but we're not super popular, so it's great.
Conversely, I loathe Turkish Delight, but think that we do pretty good stuff.
Yeah. I just want to say a quick shout out. A couple people came up to us at GP Vegas. We were there for a Magic the Gathering card tournament. If you do not know what that is, don't worry about it. But a couple people came up to us and said they really liked the Rewatch podcast, including somebody who was very young and said that it has helped him reconnect with his dad.
I thought that was amazing, actually.
I thought that was great.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
That was great to hear.
Speaking of reconnecting with family, today's episode is called Billy Joe Bob. It's about Billy Joe Bob looking for his sister.
Billy Joe Bob is an awful character, and I hate him.
He's not a great guy. But he's not. He's not. No. It's okay. It's not in the same way that we didn't like Adelaide.
Babs.
Yeah, Adelaide or Babs. Either of the. This is not written by that same guy.
No.
This episode is written by someone better.
Ouch.
But Billy Joe Bob is not necessarily a great character, but I think that's okay. So the episode opens on some jogging. Hey, you know that crazy new fad jogging?
Yeah, I would actually. So far, this episode gets a +1 for safe running tips. Well, she's wearing a really interesting jogging outfit. It's pretty crazy. It's like white and red stripes, but like thick stripes, but not like horizontal, like vertical. So like one side of her body is white and one side of her body is red. And her shorts are the same, except they're inverted. It's a weird jogging outfit.
She's like if Harley Quinn was a jogger.
Yes, exactly.
It's an interesting choice. The point is she's jogging.
And then, she starts running faster because a car appears to be chasing her.
There's a car with two people in it, a driver and a passenger. You don't see their faces or anything, but they're driving a big old sedan, and they start chasing her down, and she's still running
along the road.
And both of us are like,
why not go into trees?
Why not get off the road?
Car cannot follow into tree.
And then she does. To be fair, she does.
But then she gets off the road in a place where a car can also follow her.
So the car does, and chases her down, and there's some very bad scream acting of her standing completely still. And then she just gets rammed by the car and launched bodily into a canal.
And the car
hauls.
Now, I'm going to introduce you guys to a turn of phrase. It comes from my friend Adam's brother, Andy.
Young children, cover your ears.
It's called whipping a shitty. It's when you...
I knew it was coming, and I still think it's funny.
When you whip a really dirty U-turn. And that is exactly what these people do as they motor away.
It's a cool shot. Like, you see an exterior of the car doing it, but you also... There's a camera in the middle of the back seat, so it cuts between that. You get to see sort of a POV of the car hauling ass as it spins around.
Yeah, it gets an A++ for cinematography for that, because it's, like, very visceral.
And then we cut to the exterior of a place that we both know and do not know, because the King Kamehameha Club has a different exterior set for this season.
Just this season?
Well, than last season. I don't know if it goes back, but the point is the location that they're using as the exterior carport is different now. And it's really kind of jarring now.
Oh, it looks so different.
It looks completely different.
Well, and the thing is, you can see in a later shot that you can see like big mountains, sort of like the Hawaiian tree-covered mountains in the background. Whereas before, if you were even marginally observant, you would know that the King Kamehameha Club... In fact, this was a plot point that it was like on prime downtown real estate by the ocean.
Yeah.
It's not the same club.
No,
it's not even the same like era of building. Like the other building is very like 1960s, 1970s. This building is old and brick.
They apparently still use beachside sets for when they're at the beach bar. But for other King Kamehameha Club settings, they now use a different location. When it doesn't explicitly have to be the bar that is on the beach, they use this new location apparently. I assume it was a cost-saving measure.
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe the original location, which I think was like a Lions Club or something like that. It was like, oh, if you're getting picked up for a second season, we want a lot more for you to shoot here.
It's like, okay, later.
Yeah.
So anyway, we see a guy who happens to be Billy Joe Bob standing beside the sign to the place. It says Private Members Club or whatever. By the way, that's the real address of this building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, if we ever get to Hawaii, we can go there.
3860 Old Pally Road.
The nice thing about Billy Joe Bob is you could tell he's Billy Joe Bob immediately because he is wearing a Western shirt, a cowboy hat, and cowboy boots.
By the way, this location is on the U.S. Register of Historic Places.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the Clarence H. Cook House, later known as the Marks Estate, built for Clarence Hyde Cook, the second son of Charles Montague Cook and Anna Rice Cook, heirs of the Castle and Cook fortune. Designed by the architect Hardy Phillip. I am reading from Wikipedia.
When was it built?
1929 to 1932.
Okay.
Took a while.
Like I said, completely different era of building.
It was added to the Register of Historic Places in 1986 as a fine example of the upper-class Hawaiian-style great mansion of the late 20s and early 1930s.
Look at these rich people. Look at their rich house. No one ever enshrines a middle-class house as an important historic artifact.
You got a spare $5.6 million?
Is it for sale?
It's on the market.
Well, maybe we should start like some sort of fundraiser.
Yeah, sure.
Well, here's the deal.
Buy us a national site in Hawaii.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, I don't think we can afford any of the maintenance on it is the problem.
No.
It would immediately fall into disrepair. That's the problem with having a big house like this. You not only need to be rich to buy it, you need to be rich to maintain it. In fact, that is the plot of Downton Abbey. English aristocrats burdened with these crumbling enormous estates and no money to maintain them because all the peasants had gone off the fields and moved into the city to get factory work.
Well, that seems like something that people could get behind. We'll make a whole reality series out of it.
Fix this mansion.
Fix this nationally registered historic
I
mansion.
don't think they'd let us buy it even if we had $5.6 million in cash.
Oh, God, you know what we could call it?
Lake Titicaca?
No.
That was the stupidest thing I could come up with off the top of my head.
South America?
I was trying to come up with something dumb.
So it's
I think I succeeded.
It's the Clarence H. Cook House, Cooke. But to do a reality show about a whole bunch of people trying to maintain this old mansion, you would just call it Too Many Cooks with an E.
Okay, let's get back to the episode now.
Billy Jim Bob, Billy Joe, Joe Billy Bob, Bobby Joe Bill,
Texan.
Billy Joe Bob
Cowboy.
actually couldn't remember what his name was. Saunters up to the front door where a new member of the King Kamehameha Club, replacing Moki, has shown up.
His name is Toki. It's very similar. I thought they had just recast Moki.
It's Koki, actually.
Koki?
Koki. He's a bartender. He will appear in 8 episodes over the next several seasons.
Before being completely written out for no good reason.
Presumably, we haven't got there yet. Maybe he dies in the plot. We don't know.
Oh, maybe. Well,
and there's another guy, the maintenance guy.
so Koki hopefully won't pull a Moki, but we'll find out.
No, but Billy Bob does deck the other dude.
Well, because Billy Bob's like, I need to get inside and see Magnum, and they're like, this is a private members club, and he's like, okay, wham, I'm going inside now.
Like, it's weird. He knocks the guy out, and Koki just does basically what I would do, which is stand there and go, you just knocked that dude out. Like, Billy Bob decks the guy, then makes sure that he's lying down okay, and then sort of says, like, threatens that he'll knock out Koki, and then goes inside, and then wanders up to Magnum. If he'd wanted to see Magnum, he had ample opportunity to, because this actor, James Whitmore Jr., has actually been in... do you remember I mentioned that Tom Selleck was in a pilot called The Chinese Typewriter?
Yes.
In 1979 that didn't get picked up.
Yes.
James Whitmore Jr. was also in that pilot.
Oh.
They were also together in the pilots Gypsy Warriors and Boston and Kilbride.
Were they Boston and Kilbride?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, so Tom Selleck and James Whitmore did 3 unselected pilots between 1978 and 1979.
Holy crap.
Before Magnum took off and James Kilbride joined him in this episode.
Does this guy, the actor, does he ever get like a...
Sorry, not James Kilbride, James Whitmore.
Does James Whitmore ever get like a show of his own?
Not as such, but he obviously was in with Donald P. Belisario, and when he made the transition from acting to directing, continues actually to have a long career in television direction. He's most recently directed 31 episodes of NCIS.
Well, good for him that he's directed all those episodes of NCIS.
He's also directed, this is a weird IMDb trivia fact, he's directed Scott Bakula in 4 different TV series, because he's directed episodes of Quantum Leap, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Star Trek Enterprise, and the NCIS New Orleans backdoor pilot.
Oh, I don't think NCIS New Orleans is a thing.
No, it's not, but they were hoping it would be.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, I already have one NCIS spinoff. Don't get greedy.
So he walks in to the new King Kamehameha Club and walks up to Magnum, private eye. Magnum says private investigator, and he needs help finding his younger sister, Carol Ann Little. His name is Billy Joe Bob Little, and he's looking for Carol Ann Little.
Why would you name somebody Billy Joe Bob?
Yeah, what? Billy Joe Bob. It's not even hyphenated. It's Billy Joe Bob.
Well, it's William Joseph Robert Little. There's too many names.
And he goes by all 3 of them.
I mean, he's very Texan. But anyhow, as he was explaining all of this, then Rick and that groundskeeper that he punched the crap out of come in and are like, what the F?
It's also notable that he walks in on Magnum and TC arguing about how much money Magnum owes TC. Something about paying for a full hour of flight or portion thereof. And Magnum's like, no. We were only up in the air for 15 minutes. And TC's like, yeah, well, portion of an hour, you pay the full hour. And they're bickering about that. So Rick comes in and is like, this guy just knocked out the groundskeeper. I'm going to kick him out. And Magnum goes, okay, it's okay. We're talking about a case. I'll take him outside. How about you come with me, Billy Joe Bob?
Not before Billy Joe Bob threatens Rick.
Yeah. So Magnum walks him out front and flattens him.
Yeah, he decks him and he says, what the heck is your problem? Why would you punch those people? Those people are my friends.
You can't just go around punching people in the jaw after having literally done that to him.
Well, I feel like Magnum is like giving him the taste of his own medicine. So after they get off on kind of a rocky start, Magnum finds out what is up with Billy Joe Bob, and he's looking for his sister, and she was a lounge singer.
She moved to Hawaii like 2 years ago.
Yeah, to be someone. I mean, Hawaii is not my first stop when I want to, start in the entertainment industry, but, whatever.
And about 2 months ago, her letters home started sounding more sad.
And then she said she was coming home, and then nothing. Poof.
And then just disappeared.
She disappeared. They've phoned the police. The police are like, okay, we'll take her name, but we'll let you know if anything comes up. But they haven't heard anything, so now Billy Joe Bob has flown himself to Hawaii and has contacted Magnum to help him find his sister.
And Magnum decides to take the case.
They start at the bar that his sister was singing at. But it turns out Billy Joe Bob has already been there. Maybe he tried to do some freelance investigation on his own before he decided to hire a private eye.
Because the bartender has a Band-Aid across his nose.
And a shotgun in his hand.
And is threatening Billy Joe Bob with a shotgun. So Magnum's like, look, Billy Joe Bob, how about you go stand outside and I'll talk to the bartender.
Magnum gives this sort of wonderful Magnum apologetic smirk.
Magnum knows that the reason the bandage is there is because Billy Joe Bob decked the bartender. Is like, what did you do? And he's like, well, look, I just told the guy that his sister probably started turning tricks. And Magnum's like, why did you tell him that? What did you think was going to happen? And it's basically the story.
The bartender does say, very honestly, well, he was looking for his sister. I was not going to withhold the truth.
Yeah. The bartender tells Magnum that basically she used to sing there.
But she wasn't a good singer.
Not good. In fact, he says that it was criminal what she could do to Cole Porter, and that he has no idea what happened to her. She probably found herself a sugar daddy, because most of them do, and he's got no idea where she is. And Magnum's like, really? You have no address or anything? Nothing in your records? And he's like, records? And Magnum's like, yeah, like the W-2 you need for tax purposes. I could get friends at the IRS to send you some of those forms if you need them,
Maybe for this year? Maybe the past several years?
And the bartender just sort of goes, okay, and gives Magnum some information on where Carol Ann actually lives now.
So then we cut to Island Hoppers.
TC is working on his engine with a hammer. He's sort of just banging the engine with a hammer.
Yeah, it's interesting. TC is also wearing jeans held up by suspenders. Okay. He's not wearing a shirt. I feel like suspenders on bare skin would be a chafe issue.
It's a look, though. You and I were just in Vegas. There was billboards with dudes dressed like this.
Yeah, but they were involved in Vegas shows where they would do things like take off their clothes for money.
I'm just saying, TC is more built than any of them were.
Yeah, no, I if I had to pay to see a man take off his clothes, which I can assure you I would not. I mean, I think I'd pick TC over any of the sort of white douche assortment that they had on those billboards. They all look like failed EDM DJs. If you want an idea of what they look like. All 5 o'clock shadow, all like lean and muscular, but not too muscular.
They're like, I just can't get a
frosted tips.
I can't get a top 100 hit in Belgium. Time to go lift. Anyway, Magnum,
I bet they don't skip ab day, though.
No, they definitely don't. Magnum is trying to convince TC to take Billy Joe Bob to Maui.
For like 2 hours.
To look around, literally to get him out of Magnum's hair. This is weird because Magnum's major concern, the reason he doesn't want Billy Joe Bob around, and it is not that he seems to be punching everything in sight. It's that he's pretty sure that Carol Ann turned to prostitution, and he doesn't want Billy Joe Bob to find out. And in fact, that is the emotional leverage he uses to convince TC to help him.
Yeah, because TC's like, okay. Because basically Magnum's plan is go to her apartment, track her down, be like, okay, your family is looking for you. I understand the industry that you are in. I'm going to reunite you, and maybe you can break that news to him or pretend that you do not do that.
It's just weird because I understand there is social stigma to prostitution. Obviously, I accept that. But Magnum and TC are talking about it like she's a secret...
a leper or something.
Or a secret racist, or like that she runs a dog fighting ring. It's like, I don't want him to find out that this could be the case. And TC's like, oh, geez. His sister? Geez.
I mean, he is a good old boy.
Yeah, I guess. But it's just, I don't know. It feels like it's played up. I don't want to say it feels like it's a bigger deal than maybe it should be, but it feels like a different deal.
I honestly think perhaps that this is what we're going to have to chalk up to. It was a different time because this show was 35 years old. Attitudes towards sex have changed considerably in the last 35 years. We are way more sex positive as a society.
Yeah.
We are way more into
Which is not to say that there's not still social stigma about being a prostitute.
No, I'm totally not saying that, but I'm just saying that, 35 years ago, perhaps even the hint that your sister was sort of a lady of the evening, maybe that's way worse than it is today. I'm still saying it's bad today, but today you'd be like, okay, well, she's supporting herself any way she can. I don't know.
And just the look on TC's face, you'd think Magnum was like, I'm just afraid that he's going to find out that his sister is 18 possums in an overcoat. Also, I just would like to point out that during this scene, TC, I mentioned he's just literally hitting the helicopter engine with a hammer. At one point, he puts down the hammer, walks back to his toolbox in the back of the Island Hopper's van.
Yeah, gets a different hammer.
Gets a different, larger hammer, and comes back and continues wailing on the engine. I like that. Anyway, TC is convinced, and so Billy Joe Bubs is out of Magnum's hair.
BJB.
For the remainder of the afternoon.
But instead of cutting to Magnum's investigation...
we cut inexplicably to two men kendo sparring in a garden.
So, kendo is a traditional form of Japanese martial arts. I feel like the scope of this podcast is not enough to talk about the rich history that is kendo.
Really? Because we've gone way deeper on stuff.
I guess
I started looking up a general practitioner on doctor review sites. He had considerable wait times, Kathleen.
Oh, that's right. All right. Kendo. How can you tell Kendo? Kendo is the safe form of traditional Japanese sword fighting. Lots of white people do Kendo. You can learn Kendo here in Canada or in the States, in the UK.
At least 3 members of the crew did Kendo in high school.
Well, it's because you went to a cool high school where you could do that.
Not at the high school, just during high school.
I'm sorry, your high school had a dance studio.
That's true.
My high school had a place we called the Smoke Pit where people would go to smoke cigarettes, and then a place we called the Magic Forest where people would go to smoke pot. Any of this other infrastructure that you have at your high school is a revolutionary idea. Why couldn't you take Kendo there?
We had both of those things too, we just didn't have cool names for them.
Well, we had to make do with what we had, Graham.
Fair enough.
But anyhow, Kendo is, if you're looking for the really, really quick shorthand, it's the martial arts where they have swords, but the swords are made of big, slats of bamboo that are strapped together. And when you get hit with a Kendo sword, it absolutely hurts, but it's not fatal.
You'll see this show up a lot in wrestling, actually, in professional wrestling, like the WWE. It was popularized back in the ECW days by people like the Sandman, who still use it as sort of his calling card. It came about at a time when there was the news story of a young white American man who'd gone to Singapore and graffitied something and then gotten whipped by a cane. It was in the news, which was not a Kendo stick. But because professional wrestling is perhaps a little politically tone deaf, if you're being generous, people started using kendo sticks, which were referred to the announcers as a Singapore cane. They are no longer referred to as such. They just call them kendo sticks. But they still show up from time to time because, like Kathleen said, they're sword-shaped and they certainly hurt. But more importantly, they don't actually hurt a huge amount, but they make a hell of a big noise. If you're wailing it on someone's bare back, it's going to hurt and leave marks, as it does in wrestling. But anyway, what I'm saying is, if you haven't seen literal kendo, that's probably a place where you will have seen a kendo stick.
Here's some fun facts about kendo. Kendo literally means sword way. Ken, sword, do, way. It is a relatively modern martial art. It's descended from sort of traditional swordsmanship, and those bamboo swords are called shinai.
I knew that.
And the protective armor that they're wearing is called bogu.
And it's about scoring points. So similar to fencing, you get certain points depending on where you hit the people. There's no points in kendo for the face or the groin.
That's not honorable.
You get points for, like the neck, the torso, the arms, things like that.
Now, here's a sad fact. Kendo and all other martial arts was banned in Japan in 1946 by the occupying powers after World War II. Did you know that?
Does that ban remain in place?
No.
Okay, I was wondering. I was like, surely they can still do kendo in Japan.
They banned this because obviously this is basically a form of traditional sword fighting practice. And they decided that if we remove all of these sort of like militaristic and ultra-national ideas and things that Japanese did, because obviously sword fighting practice is tied to shoguns and military service and all of that, right? We'll get rid of all of that and reform Japan, but that did not stick around. In 1952, after Japan's independence was restored and all of the martial arts bans in Japan were lifted, and the Japan All-Kendo Federation was immediately established. So there you go.
Just to further clarify my point from earlier, here's the scoring zones, if you're curious, Kathleen.
Oh.
The top or side of the head, a padded area on the left or right wrist,
Okay.
an area on the right or left side of the armor that protects the torso, and the neck, which is actually how this particular combat ends between these two people.
Look at us for bringing that back full circle.
Yeah,
Good job, team.
It ends with a man by the name of Ito winning over presumably his sparring partner, someone who works for him. It's not really clear, as a man in a suit walks up to deliver information. Billy Joe Bob has come looking for Carol Ann, and he's hired a private investigator. They don't know how good the private investigator is, but he doesn't know anything yet. And Mr. Ito, or Ito-san, as he is referred to, says, well, let's make sure that he doesn't find out anything. Get 2 of your best men and watch him and make sure that nothing happens. And then Ito walks through his garden and turns around and faces the camera, and you realize that it is Seth Sakai, the same guy who played the Asian crime boss last season in All Roads Lead to Floyd, despite being a completely different character.
I mean, at least he's still playing a Japanese crime boss.
It's true.
I was like, he looks awfully familiar. And Graham was like, do you recognize the actor? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, well, it's the same guy from All Roads Lead to Floyd. I'm like, well.
Mr. Mizumura was the character in All Roads Lead to Floyd.
Right. And in fact, Magnum, we finally cut back to Magnum, who is getting out at a very swanky apartment building, actually. And he says, all right, now I'm pretty sure that she was a prostitute because there's no way you can afford an apartment in this building on a lounge singer's income. And in fact, 2 men are following Magnum, just as Ito-san requested.
It's interesting, though, because these guys look more like Hawaiians than Japanese guys, but who's to say that Mr. Ito doesn't have Hawaiian muscle working for him?
It's true.
Magnum goes and rings the bell. There's no answer, so he pulls out his lockpicks. Never forget that he always carries the lockpicks. Lets himself in, looks around, and he's like, man, Carol Ann had some nice stuff.
Yeah, this is a nice apartment.
Amazing view, nice stereo, well appointed.
Interestingly, there's a tree that obviously must be fake because it's apparently been neglected for 2 months and is fine.
And her answering machine...
Oh, it's huge.
Which is, it's the size of a toaster oven.
It's a 222 model.
is full of messages, and it's clear that indeed she was turning some number of high-profile tricks. It's interesting. It's never addressed, but both of the messages on the answering machine that we hear are clearly from Asian gentlemen asking her for her services and to also bring that other girl with her. This never comes up later in the episode. The second message is like, oh, and bring that redheaded, and then Magnum stops the message. The first message is like, can you come over and bring the whipped cream lady?
Oh my.
So anyway, I guess what we're learning is that she had a specific clientele.
Mm-hmm. This apartment is really nice by 1981 standards and looks exactly like many awful apartments that I have lived in over the course of my life. Just run down and scummy by the time I get to them.
The 2 men who were following Magnum downstairs are now in the apartment. I guess they also have lockpicks? Or maybe
Magnum didn't lock the door.
That's true. Maybe they have the keys, though, because they are the police. They are not working for Ito-san, and they place Magnum under arrest on suspicion of murder.
I knew you were going to do the Pink Panther accent.
Of course I am.
Can you say murder without doing the accent?
I honestly have to think about it before I say it.
I mean, it's not a word that comes up a lot in our everyday vocabulary.
No, it's not. It's just a good way to end a sentence. This is yet another instance of Magnum talks to the police off camera. Because the next scene starts and we see TC's helicopter landing, dropping Billy Joe Bimblejobs off, and Magnum narrating that the police had nothing on him, so they let him go.
Yeah, he says, sure, I'd been in Carol Ann's apartment, but so had a lot of other guys.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Magnum rolls up to Island Hoppers and tells Billy Joe Bobs that, of course, he knew that there was nothing to see on Maui, and he just sent him over there so he could do some work, and he's found out some news, and it's that Carol Ann is dead. And Bobby Jimbles takes it pretty hard.
He's so upset he casts himself into the sea.
What?
We cut inexplicably to Robin's nest where Magnum is swimming because he's got that physique to maintain. And Billy Joe Bob is just like on the beach and he's sad. And he takes off his shirt and then he just walks into the sea.
He takes off his cowboy boots and his overshirt.
He still has his hat. He still has an undershirt.
He still has jeans.
And a belt.
Anybody ever walk in wet jeans?
So, like I said, he's so upset he casts himself into the sea.
So that he can talk to Magnum.
I mean, he could have waited till Magnum came out of the sea. This is a really pretty shot, though. It's a really sunny, bright day.
This is also apparently 2 days later. Apparently, Billy Joe just spent the next 2 days
getting drunk and punching people, presumably.
Presumably, yeah. So Magnum's like, well, I think we just let the police handle it and get you on a plane back to Texas. And Billy Bimbles says, would you do that if this was your sister? And then Magnum just sighs, and then we cut to them planning an undercover sting. Well, not a sting, but their plan... This is a dumb plan, Magnum. Their plan is they're going to go to a bar and try to get propositioned by ladies of negotiable affection and then ask them...
About Carol
Ann or how to contact their pimp or whatever. So... For some reason, Magnum is really concerned about making Billy Joe, like, blend in.
Well, but here's the deal. Carol Ann is from Texas.
Yeah.
He's from Texas. You know, she's disappeared under some mysterious circumstances. She's been murdered. I think Magnum has the right idea. Just, play it cool. Don't be like, I'm from Texas, just like someone who just got murdered.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Billy Joe Bob, by the way, completely fails at listening to Magnum and pretending not to be from Texas and is just the worst. They're sitting at the bar, and a lady comes and sits down next to them, and Billy Joe Bob is just like, all right, let's get down to brass tacks. And Magnum is like, whoa. Not every woman in this bar is a prostitute. She is not a prostitute. Don't be a complete jackass. He then is a complete jackass, and she gets mad and leaves. But finally, 2 actual prostitutes show up.
They are also being watched this entire time by 2 of Ito's goons. We can tell that they're his goons because they are wearing black suits, and they are Japanese. Unlike the 2 cops who were wearing brown and tan suits and were Hawaiian. Also, by the way, one of the cops, played by Jimmy Borges, he's a decorated Hawaiian jazz musician.
Really?
Yeah, played like 11 different roles in the original Hawaii Five-0 and was recently in an episode of the new Hawaii Five-0.
Neat.
Yeah, and he's in 4 episodes of Magnum P.I. as 4 different characters.
All those ethnic people, they're interchangeable, right? 1980s casting department says.
I'm looking forward to Sakai spotting because Seth Sakai is in at least 5 other episodes of Magnum as different Asian characters.
And it's not like he's not a distinctive looking person.
No, he's really distinctive.
I don't understand how they think that we can't tell them apart, right? Like,
I don't understand why they're not the same character.
Well, because Seth Sakai's character in All Roads Lead to Floyd got arrested.
I guess he would know Magnum is the problem. I feel like if they'd thought about it more in advance, they could have actually developed him as like a continuing foil, a nemesis. Then it turns more into Batman. Maybe I just really like Batman.
Anyhow.
Yeah, it's probably better for this. Maybe they should have just gotten different actors. Anyway,
I'm going to give a retroactive, but don't add this to the count, but a retroactive that's racist to the entire Magnum casting department for their use of ethnic actors in interchangeable roles.
Because we're assuming that they figured that audiences wouldn't know the difference. But here's the thing. In 1981, maybe people were recording episodes at home. Maybe. Probably not. There's no IMDb.
There's no internet.
At best, you have like the Leonard Maltin movie guide for film. You certainly don't have that for television.
You might just have forgotten he was in that episode.
Also, we're watching this like 5 weeks later, whereas audiences at the time, this would have been
months.
8 months. You're not going to be like, oh, that's the guy from that episode 3 or 4 episodes ago. I don't know. I'm sure that there is a degree of people probably won't know the difference, but I think there's also a very legitimate people, like, they won't remember, they won't be able to compare. That's just, television was a lot more ephemeral, right? Like you saw an episode once and then maybe you'd see it again a couple years later in syndication.
All right, I rescind that to a 0.5. That's racist.
Okay. It's still not going on the count though, right?
No.
Okay.
That's just a general observation.
So these hookers come over.
Yes, these ladies of the night.
And Bibble Job is just like, all right, look, here's what's up.
Well, no, first, I think this is funny. Magnum has clearly given up on getting Bibble Job to not pretend to be a gigantic Texan hick, so he just pretends he's from Texas.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, no, we're both from Texas. Yeehaw, we got all this oil money. And it's just Tom Selleck doing a bad Texan accent because he's like, okay, this guy cannot pretend to be local, so I'll just pretend that we're both tourists. And then the girls start getting sort of like a squiffy feeling, and they start to leave, and Billy Joe's like, no, look, okay, seriously, this is an act, but I need to find my sister. I need to know what happened to her. Here's her picture. Do you remember? And they're like, well, no, if we say anything, we'll end up just like she did, so not telling you anything. And Billy Joe makes a very impassioned plea with one of them, who says, Ito-san. And then Magnum's like, we need to leave. Let's go. And then the two Ito's goons come over and grab the girls and leave as well. And Magnum's like, oh, uh-oh. And Billy Joe, of course, being a good old boy, is like, well, we got them into this mess. We owe it to them to get them out of it.
Magnum is not arguing this point with him, though, at least.
Yeah. So they run out and get into an altercation.
Well, Billy Joe Bob just, knocks one of the guys out.
He's good at that.
And then the other guy pulls out some nunchucks.
Wait, what?
Well, he's Japanese.
He pulls out nunchucks.
Nunchucks.
He just pulls out nunchucks.
Maybe he's, been studying sleight of hand.
He just has...
He's a goon. They have nunchucks. He's Japanese.
It's so dumb.
It's actually one of the least dumb things in this episode, honestly, for things that require you to stretch your imagination.
Really? It's the thing that actually bugs me the most. This hired goon doesn't have,
a gun.
Knuckles or a blackjack or something. He has nunchucks. It's like, remember in China Doll, the guy had shuriken? And it's like, he's Chinese?
Yeah, but at least nunchucks are Japanese, Graham. They're apparently a traditional Okinawan weapon. Maybe he's from Okinawa.
Yeah, I know they're traditional, but it's like...
I'm not arguing that it's not dumb.
I'm just imagining a French gangster pulling out a rapier.
Or a baguette.
That might be a little bit more ridiculous. But it's just like... that he just pulls out nunchucks, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Why does he have nunchucks?
Billy Joe Bob, by the way, does not know what nunchucks are and just decides to charge it anyhow and gets clocked on the head and immediately passes out. I'm like, wow, in real life, I think his skull is broken. Mm-hmm. Nunchucks are incredibly deadly.
Yeah.
Magnum picks up an ashtray, uses it to parry the nunchucks, and then eventually disarms the guy and knocks him out.
And then tries to revive Billy Joe Bob and gets pistol whipped by one of the prostitutes.
Well, she picks up the nunchucks.
And he passes out. And then he and Billy Joe Bob wake up in a parking lot. And Billy Joe Bob is like, cool, well, we got to go find this Ito-san guy and gonna go kill him. And Magnum's like, will you just gear down and you're just gonna go and ask around for this guy? And he's like, no, I'm gonna go home and get my gun and then start asking around for this Ito-san guy. And Magnum's like, it's just Ito. Everyone knows Ito. And he's like, why are you saying Ito? Well, why is it Ito-san? And
Magnum briefly considers trying to explain the concept of Japanese honorifics to Billy Jobbles.
And gives up almost immediately.
I feel that's the correct choice.
Yeah. So Magnum gets back to Robin's nest. It's early in the morning. They've obviously gone home and I guess licked their concussions.
I actually think it's less believable that B. Bobson is not incredibly concussed.
Yeah. And Magnum wakes up Higgins, who we're seeing for the first time this episode. It's Higgins, everybody. Yay.
Right. Remember me?
There's something stinky on the estate. And Magnum's like, look, I need your help. Can you keep Billy Joe in the guest house? Just keep him trapped in there any means necessary. And Higgins is like, sure.
Magnum's like, uh-oh. There's
no catch? And Higgins is like, oh, there's a catch. Higgins apparently recently fired the groundskeeper, and until he finds a new one, there's some chores that need to be done. Specifically, the dissemination of an entire pallet load of what Higgins refers to as recycled vegetation. Magnum says, recycled through what? To which Higgins responds, a cow.
Poo, which I guessed immediately as soon as Magnum was like, wow, it smells awful around here.
So basically, Magnum has to distribute an entire pallet worth of manure in exchange for Higgins keeping Billy Joe trapped in the guest house, which works. So they agree to that, and those are the terms, and that's fine.
Higgins looks very pleased. Billy Joe gets up, thinks Magnum's working on his tan, and when he goes to leave, he is in fact attacked by Zeus and Apollo. Or not attacked, but they're outside the door and they're like, rawr, 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 rawr.
So then we go to an exterior of TC landing the Island Hoppers helicopter at Ito-san's house because Magnum's gonna go and have a chat.
How does Magnum know where he lives?
Well, he says that he's a well-known drug lord. He was apparently deported at one point, but not actually deported because his lawyers managed to keep things held up in legal shenanigans and then it didn't happen.
So Ito-san, I guess, is one of those legitimate businessmen.
Yeah.
But absolutely not.
So he shows up to this oppressively Japanese mansion.
It's very traditional Japanese.
It really is. It got tatami mats all over the floor. Magnum notably does not remove his shoes.
Rude.
Jinx.
We didn't rehearse that.
No, that's amazing. And Ito is sitting there practicing calligraphy.
Yeah, this is like somebody has been to a museum and seen an exhibit on Japanese culture, and this is exactly how they did the set and this room.
I'm surprised he doesn't say yata at some point or drive a mech. So Magnum says he's looking for Carol Ann Little. It's clear that Ito knows her, even though he claims not to, and Magnum says, well, I have her diary. She talks about you. She gets more and more worried at the end of it, says that she knows that someone's going to kill her, and it's pretty clear that she's talking about you, so we've got you for this. And he says, really? How much money do you want for that? Like $10,000?
Magnum's like, no, I think I can get more than that. How about $50,000?
And Ito says, okay.
This is all a ruse. There's no diary. But it is a good way of confirming what Magnum wants to confirm before, they decide to do some sort of Billy Joe Bob thing.
To be fair, it's actually never made clear that this diary is not real. It's just that we never saw Magnum get it, so we assume that he's making this up.
He knows Ito-san absolutely had Carol Ann killed, because if he didn't, he'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, he doesn't care.
He's willing to pay $50,000 for this without seeing any proof, so it's obvious what's happened.
Yeah, and it's also obvious to Ito that Magnum is really smart. But he figures that Magnum is, while smart, dumb enough to take money.
And in fact, as soon as Magnum leaves, you get the idea, and then they say this later in the episode, when he shows up to collect the money, we will kill him.
Yeah.
Because okay.
So Magnum lands, gets out of the helicopter, TC flies away, and there's the police there again.
Womp womp.
And Magnum's like, oh, you want to take me downtown again? You want to cuff me this time or what?
Meanwhile,
there's a small scene of Bimble Jimbles just trying to figure out some way to get out of the guest house.
Yeah, he's going through all Magnum stuff. Magnum has this big hiking backpack and inexplicably a big length of rope.
Yeah, it's not really clear why, but there we go. That's the whole scene. He finds rope, the end. Then we get to the police station. We actually get to see Magnum interact with local law officials in their place of business for the first time ever. Praise be. Hallelujah. Magnum is sitting in an office, really bored and wondering why he can't leave because he's not being charged with anything and he just wants to get back out there on the case. The detective says, well, my partner's going to get something that you need to be made aware of. And he wheels in on a wheelchair Carol Ann Little. She's not dead. I
mean, she doesn't look great. I'm not going to lie.
Well, it's pretty clear that she's now paralyzed from the waist down because this is 2 months later. And she doesn't look like she's in a cast. Like she's crippled by the car accident, but she's not dead. And in fact is an important witness and is willing to testify against Ito in court because she saw him kill 2 guys. Well, order one guy's death.
And then actually kill another guy.
Yeah.
So they can finally nail this guy. Unfortunately, Magnum keeps screwing this up by poking around.
Carol Ann Little, by the way, played by Marla Pennington.
Neat.
Who had a variety of little guest appearances on television. And her last acting role is also her biggest, 96 episodes as the mother on Small Wonder.
Really?
Yeah, the show about the robot daughter. Everybody remember Small Wonder? No? Just us? Okay.
Well, I remember Small Wonder because we've actually done that as a late-night dub fight clip. And we've done a redub of an episode of Magnum. So in some way, they're connected by us.
She was also on 17 episodes of Soap. It's worth noting that between IMDb and Wikipedia, all they can agree on is that Small Wonder was her last role. She's not dead, but she's just
retired.
Just didn't do anything after Small Wonder.
Maybe she married someone and
nobody knows.
Changed careers or
no one knows.
Slipped into the ether.
She's a ghost.
No, she's alive.
She also can't do a very good accent.
No, her
accent is miserable. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't. This role is insignificant enough. Just hire somebody from Texas or who can pretend to be from Texas.
She looks a little haggard. I mean, obviously, again, she's in a wheelchair and her legs don't work, but she also looks a little haggard. And she's unhappy to hear that Billy Bob knows that she's a prostitute now, but happy that he's there.
She's like, oh, I love Pickles, because that's apparently his childhood nickname.
Pickles, for his part, has figured out a foolproof system for escaping from the guest house at Robin's Nest. I don't know if we've ever completely described the layout of the Robin's Nest guest house, but it's sort of important to understand his escape plan if you haven't ever watched the show. So there's a doorway on ground level, and then a lot of the guest house is basement. It's one big double height room that's the sort of has like a raised dining area with a kitchenette, and then the living room is this sort of big 2-story room that extends down below ground level. So there's a doorway that just opens onto a landing, and then there's stairs down, a landing, and then stairs down. I hope that I've explained it. Maybe it'll be more clear when I explain how Pickles gets out, which is that he ties the rope around the doorknob and leads it down the stairs around the banister down to where he is in front of the hall closet, which is directly under the door. The hall closet is in the stairs, basically, directly under the door.
Mm-hmm. They're using space.
He is now...
And then he piles furniture up in front of the hall closet so he can sort of climb up from the bottom of the guest house to the landing, even though that's like 10 feet or whatever.
So he pulls the door open. Zeus and Apollo rush inside. While they're coming down the stairs, the sort of switchback stairs which terminate at the bottom of his pile of furniture, he climbs up the pile of furniture over the rail at the top, and he's now directly in front of the door. He unhooks the rope and leaves, leaving Zeus and Apollo now trapped in the guest house barking their heads off. He jumps in the Ferrari because he stole Magnum's keys and leaves. I would like to mention, it's never made clear how Magnum got 2 island hoppers.
Yeah, this really bugs me.
Yeah, given the option, why would he not be driving the Ferrari? Why would he drive the Jimmy or the Audi or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Because he lands at Island Hoppers, gets in the police car, and goes downtown. The Ferrari should be in the parking lot at Island Hoppers.
Yes.
It's weird. Also, the police, when Magnum later finds out that Bobby Jobles has gotten out, the police put out an APB on the Ferrari without Magnum telling them that he took the Ferrari. It's just like a weird scripting oversight.
Yeah, I noticed that and was like, oh, psychic police, you'd think they'd be better doing their job.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they find this out because Magnum goes to call Bobby, and all of a sudden, he gets Higgins. And Higgins is like, that guy escaped. I take full responsibility.
It should be mentioned that Higgins himself does not answer the phone.
Oh, right, it's so cute. Zeus and Apollo are looking at him like sort of, we did it bad.
They're sitting there whimpering, and then the phone rings, and then one of the dogs knocks the receiver off the phone to answer the phone for Higgins.
I feel like in real life, those dogs would not be like, oh, we did not do the good thing. They'd be like, you love us, give us steak. Those dogs are actually so spoiled by Higgins.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Magnum's like, well, Billy Joe has escaped. I guess he's going to go find Ito. But I mean, how is he going to get to Maui? I guess we can check all of the charters. And Carol Ann says, oh, but didn't you know Billy Joe is a crop duster back home, so he can fly pretty much anything.
Cut to Billy Joe Bob hot wiring TC's helicopter.
This is actually the thing that bugs me the most about this. Helicopters do not fly like planes. I don't think anybody who could fly a plane would assume that they could get into a helicopter and then actually be able to pilot it. This is so dumb.
Also, where's the door?
Yeah, the door's just gone. I guess TC was working on it. Maybe that's why he's able to steal it.
To be clear, the driver's side door of the helicopter, it just isn't there. It does mean we get some cool exterior shots of the plane flying around with Billy Joe sitting in it. You can see him, and he's like sort of peering around looking for where to land. But it's very strange that there's no door when every other time we've seen the helicopter, there's a door.
Yeah, this is another weird choice, but there's no way. I'm sorry, but you can't, just because you can fly a crop duster doesn't mean you can fly a helicopter. Well, I can't fly, and I know this.
Well, what she says is he can fly almost anything. Separate clause, he has a crop duster back home. She's not necessarily suggesting that he can fly a helicopter because he can fly a crop duster, just that he has a plane, but it is pretty disbelievable.
Helicopters are really hard to fly.
Yeah. I should mention, just as an aside, we're talking about the things that bugged me about this episode. These are pretty minor. These are sort of like suspension of disbelief things. Mm-hmm. These are not the sort of the structural or the character complaints that we've had in a couple previous episodes. Mm. Overall, this is a fine episode. Billy Joe Bob is a dumb character who's like written to be headstrong to a point of disbelief.
Punch first, ask questions later.
But to comical extremes. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, this episode's fine. I really enjoyed the scene with Magnum going to see Ito with the diary. Magnum does that a lot, where he pretends to know more than he does to get
information,
the actual information out.
Yeah.
Without tipping off other people. I do like that.
But here's something that actually really bugged me. You can see that the headphones labeled J. Jones or something like that. What's TC's full name?
Theodore Calvin. That's what TC stands for.
Exactly. Who's got the Jones on these headphones? That's like a little oversight, obviously, from the person who actually has those headphones. That's really irritating to me.
That would be helicopter pilot and aerial coordinator J. David Jones.
Yeah, I thought it was a J, but I couldn't quite tell that part, but I could definitely see Jones.
Yeah. So it belongs to the
actual guy who does that flying.
Yeah.
Gaff.
Actually, some gaff would have fixed that. Put some gaff tape over it.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Haha. Anyway, they can hear the helicopter coming, and Ito's goon comes up and says, well, that'll be Magnum. And Ito says, good. You know what to do. To which the guy inexplicably responds, yes, wait till he lands and then kill him. Bows, leaves. It's like, yeah, I know that you know. That's why I said you know what, forget it.
I feel like if you work for Ito, you just want to double check.
Yeah. Just to be clear, actually, Mitchell and Webb did a great bit about that. It's like, I want this problem taken care of. Right. So, to clarify, you do mean kill him, right?
Not a bad idea when you work for a mob boss.
But that guy does not get to kill Magnum for two reasons. One, it's not Magnum. And two, Billy Joe knocks 3 guys out with the runner of the helicopter.
Yeah, basically they're like, oh, get him. And then he takes the helicopter down and then like swings it back and then like hits them with the runner. And they all go flying and are apparently totally unconscious, maybe dead. I don't know.
They're basically knocked out forever.
Yeah, that's stupid. Also, like I said, that's ridiculous that you could fly a helicopter that well.
Magnum and the cops are now in a different charter helicopter.
They're in a police helicopter.
Hauling ass to try and get over to Ito's. And Billy Joe Bob walks into Ito.
Who apparently has no other security.
And introduces himself. And again, has a gun. Has a pistol, like a Colt, in a belt holster. And Ito has a katana and no gun. And Billy Bob stands there with his finger like twitching over the gun.
Like he's going to do a quick draw.
And I'm like, the other guy doesn't have a gun. You don't have to be faster than him. Just take out your gun.
I know.
Just point your gun at him, and then you have the gun, and he's on the other side of the room with a katana. But we cut away, and we see Magnum and the cops land, and they run inside, and they can't find him. And instead, we cut around the back of the building, where, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Billy Joe Bob, the man from Texas, is about to, I believe it's called, lynch Ito from a tree.
That's racist.
Technically, I believe you could just call it hanging, but I believe that when someone from the southern U.S. does it, it's called lynching.
I don't know. It's
just really weird that he took Magnum's climbing rope, tied a noose, and like Ito's standing on a deck chair out by this tree out back. Presumably he was coerced into this at gunpoint, and Billy Joe Bob is going to hang him from the neck until dead, presumably.
Frontier justice.
This is 1981 in Hawaii.
Magnum is like, whoa, don't murder this guy. And
he says, Carol Ann's alive. And Bimble Jimbles doesn't believe him. And he says, Carol Ann is... No, seriously, she's alive. And he doesn't believe Magnum. And then Magnum just says, Pickles. And Billy Joe goes, what? I'm Pickles. He looks like a 5-year-old. He's like, I'm Picklesman. And Magnum's like, yeah, no, it's... Come on, Pickles. Don't kill the guy. Dissolve back to Robin's nest. That's it.
Whatever happens is now presumably taken care of, I guess.
Yeah. The climactic moment of the episode, from a story perspective, the literal pivot climax point was Magnum says the word pickles.
Okay. From
a story structure perspective, that was when the climax happened. That was when the final conflict was resolved. Well, not the final conflict, because when we get back to Robin's nest, Higgins is spreading the fertilizer on the lawn. And Magnum walks up and is like, why are you doing this? I thought we had a deal. And Higgins says, yes, we did have a deal, and I did not hold up my part of the bargain, so I can't very well ask you to hold up yours. And Magnum is like, well, come on, Higgins, we're still friends, aren't we? I mean, and he starts taking his shirt off. He's like...
And you're like, oh, Magnum's about to do something genuinely nice.
He's like, and, you have to do this so quickly before the weather turns. You're doing this for the lawn, which we all get to enjoy, so I'll be thinking about you while I go swimming. And then Magnum dives into the water, and that's the end of the episode.
Okay, so there's no looks at the camera this episode. Even though there'd be ample opportunities for them.
You would have thought.
Maybe they decide to dial it back season 2.
Yeah. And there wasn't anything on the that's racist count.
Well, nothing that directly... Well, what about the
for
lynching?
This episode? That's weird. To be clear, I am absolutely not calling the invisible specter of reverse racism, but I actually think that this is negatively stereotyping people from Texas. It's like, oh, we'll have the guy from Texas lynch the Japanese gangster. I think that's lazy writing in terms of making fun of Cowboy Hicks from Texas.
Yeah, that's true, actually. This is a very shallow, stereotypical character.
Yeah.
He cares about his baby sister, and he's devastated because his baby sister may not be an innocent baby sister anymore, and he's going to go and do the frontier justice and the punchman and the shootsman and the lassoesman.
I honestly thought, because it cuts away, he's walking through Ito's place and he starts like fumbling with the rope, and I was like, I swear to God, I thought we were going to get a scene of him lassoing Ito. Because I thought he was building a lasso. Turns out he was building a noose, which is not better. But the point is, I thought that we were getting that level of stereotype. I actually kind of liked Ito. His house was ridiculously Japanese. And the scene with him and Magnum, that he has like a katana, he's wearing a kimono, and there's like a geisha in the background. He's practicing calligraphy. It's a little on the nose. But
I think he's wearing a yukata, actually.
That's true. But the character himself, I thought, a more complete character than
Billy Joe Derps. I don't like this episode that much.
It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
There's too many suspension of disbeliefs. There's too many small writing errors, and there's some gaffes. And
yeah, but I like this kind of thing way better than something like Adelaide or Beauty Knows No Pain, that just feels weird the whole way through, and that the characters do dumb things that make no sense.
That's true. But I'm just saying
there's plot holes in their suspension of disbelief. And we've already shown that Magnum can do a good episode and not have that happen.
Exactly.
And so that's, that sucks. But
I want a tighter episode.
Yeah, but it's not a bad episode. It's just not great.
I'll give it a 6.
Cool.
I think that's a fair mark. It's not awful. It has plot holes. And that is something I look down upon in television writing.
I agree. Maybe TC picked him up in the Island Hoppers van.
Maybe he took a cab.
No.
See, that's a problem.
As always, this podcast is brought to you by you, the listeners at home, by supporting our Patreon, patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We do that by month, and you can do any amount from $1 up. It is totally up to you, and it supports not only the Magnum Rewatch podcast, but all the other things that we do as well, and more to come in the future. Next time on the Magnum Rewatch podcast, we'll be looking at episode 2 of season 2, Dead Man's Channel.
Ooh.
Pirates.
Really?
I have no idea. Just because it's Dead Man's Chest, Dead Man's Channel.
You got my hopes up.
I should mention, actually, we're in season 2. This is the first episode of season 2 now. They replaced that awful shot in the opening titles of the car looking really stupid and exploding in a dumb way with a much better shot of a different car exploding.
There's also been some minor soup-ups to the opening titles, but maybe we'll talk about that for episode 2, since we forgot to talk about it until the end of this episode.
I'm just glad that the car looks better now.
Yes, there's different shots. There's a few shots that have been changed, and the music has been changed, but we'll go over that next week. Yeah.
So, until next time... Zeus! Apollo! I'm in the shower! Get the phone!
I'm kind of disappointed at the cats. Because halfway through recording this podcast, one of our cats hopped up and was up in our grill and like rubbing his face on the microphones and trying to get attention. And now they're both asleep.
Yep.
They want nothing to do with us anymore. The cat attention window has passed.
I bet they wouldn't even answer the phone.
I mean, I could try it.
I don't actually know if feline foot pads work on iOS devices. Wait, no, there's iPad games for cats, aren't there?
Yes.
For people who don't value their iPads very highly?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I've tried them.
Well, we have bigger cats, I guess.
Yeah, they don't seem to care that much. They can tell it's on an iPad.
They're too smart for their own good.
You don't want a cat that's too smart. You get the laser pointer out, and the cat looks at the dot, and then looks at your hand and saunters off, and you're like, well, this is supposed to be, amazing for you, and now you're just don't bother me with these tawdry baubles. I guess I spent $10 on this laser pointer for nothing.
Is every sign-off from here on out just going to be us talking about our cats?
Possibly.
I'm okay with it.